Hey, Mal, what am I?
It's salmon.
You knew because I was going upstream.
You were going upstream.
Welcome back to Try Before We Die, the whiskey review show where we don't know what we're drinking, but we'll tell you what we're thinking. Hey, and this is my pal Mal. Hey, Mal.
You didn't even know who I was because you were still in salmon mode.
Going upstream. It's time to spawn, everyone.
So what's this about? We're having a show?
We got a whiskey show. There are over 400 unopened bottles of Scotch whiskey, single malt in this bar. And we are archiving the experience randomly without preparation. This is
Try before we die.
Yes. I hope mostly try before you die.
It's a good chance, man, because you always remind everybody that I am older.
And currently, mathematically, you got me by 3, shortly to be reduced to 2 again. All right, let's see what tonight's bottle is. You want to do it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
All right. What does Randy have for us? I think, let's see, I'll go with bottle 97.
I'm going to go with like 20. Oh, 63.
Oh my gosh, it is right behind me. So that's going to be a Glenmorangie or a Macallan, in my opinion. So again, these are the times where we know we're telling the truth. We're just going to do it right now. 63. How many across, Mal?
15. I think you're into the Macallans.
30.
Yeah. 45. 60. You are into the Macallans.
We're into the Macallans. All right. 15, 30, 45, 60. 1, 2, 3. Coming right up in the 3 range.
Oh.
All right. So we have Macallan's classic core offering of their 12-year-old coming in at 43%. This has been around here for quite some time. It was sandwiched by a 15-year-old fine oak and a classic cut and number 5.
So that was 62, right?
And a classic cut. Yeah, 62 would have been good. But this will be good. All right, what do we know about Macallan?
Well crafted. Mm-hmm. Almost maligned in this day and age.
One of the ways we know this is an older bottling is that it has the peel strip.
Oh, okay.
Versus the newer bottlings, which have the break.
Yeah, all right.
Yep. Anyway, go ahead. What do you mean maligned?
Because I find now, so again, this is my personal opinions, going onto forums and stuff like that, and now that we're doing the show, and of course we get some exposure here and there, what I find is a lot of people take shots at Macallan because of maybe the name and the way.
I tried. It gave a little, but it fought back.
Ooh.
I hope that translated into the sound.
That was loud.
All right, go ahead.
And in the sense that, it's the name that sells the whiskey.
Is the criticism these
Correct.
days. Yes.
And I think that it's one of those things where, me personally, I find that Macallans are well crafted. I don't think we've come across a Macallan that I'm like, holy moly, didn't know what they were doing. All their bottles that we've tried over the years, whether for the show or just because we've opened a bottle, I've found the craftsmanship that put it together, and being a Speyside, so let's just throw that out.
They would advertise themselves as a Highland.
Okay.
But what do we know? All Speysides are Highlands, but not all Highlands are Speysides. And it is in the Speyside region located.
But I find that the taste is absolutely amazing what they do. It's not like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I find it, like I said, I just find it's like a little bit funny that people just malign it because they've Macallan.
Right, I agree. And the secondary market prices are out of control at times.
And it is what it is.
Right.
If we're just talking about whiskey, though.
All right. If we're just talking about whiskey, Macallan, well known for what?
Sherry.
Yes, absolutely. From?
Spain. I don't know.
Jerez. Yeah. Okay, so we got this 43%, this 12-year-old, this sherry cask Macallan, right? Mal, you've done a nice job sort of explaining the popular criticism of Macallan these days. And people will be like, oh, for the money that you could spend on that, you could get 2 or 3 quality bottles somewhere else. And though the math is there, if you buy those 2 or 3 bottles of something else, you're also saying, I'm not going to have the Macallan.
Correct.
And so it is worth, if you have the means, right? Who is that? Ferris Bueller?
Yes.
Right. To try as many as you can, right? And to not just take somebody else's criticism of a product because of cost, equating not quality.
And especially if you're like going out and you're taking your steps down, you know, there's nothing wrong with the Macallan.
Yeah.
And if you can afford it, like you said, and it's something, this is a hobby for you, so this is disposable income.
Right. Or if this is just a bottle you're buying and this is your whiskey budget for the month,
then so be it.
You're not gonna go, oh, that was terrible.
Oh, no.
Right. And what I also know about Macallan is, and though I don't think we'll see it here, they do not add color to their whiskeys.
Okay.
Okay, so I like that. Exclusively matured in sherry oak, right? Satisfyingly rich and complex. The legendary single malt is exclusively matured, sublime spirit. If I was gonna, imagine we were gonna go to Scotland for the show, and we were gonna go to Macallan. You can no longer just arrive, from what I understand.
Oh, you have to be fired.
You really have to book in advance now, right? I'm not even sure you can get through the gate of the new facility, right? We've learned that distilleries themselves are the single most popular tourist destination in Scotland.
And so be it. I mean, that's Scotland, you think of Scotch.
Right, so you can say, oh, they're pretentious, they've locked the gate. The other side of that argument would be, we can't just have people just showing up all day and queuing in a line. See how I use that European word?
Yeah, I like
right,
queue.
Right, and then being disappointed that it will be hours and they might not get in, right? So they're managing their fan base.
And it goes to the same thing. Yep. Things have changed over the years that we've been living, right?
Yes.
The way people behave have changed. And I understand completely. If this is going to be where you are crafting and spending amounts of money to R&D and whatever you got to do, then so be it. If you have to call ahead and make sure you get a date to come in, then it is what it is.
Right. Be secure in your experience rather than be disappointed.
It isn't like a fish and chip shop where you can just pop in and get a fish and chip.
Wouldn't you say a chippy?
A chippy.
Yes. All right. So we've got this 12-year-old Macallan. I'm confident, no color added. Why don't you lead us on a color, Malcolm?
I'm going to go with a great color. I'm going to say mahogany.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not overused if it's accurate.
I think when I think about Macallan, I think of the color.
Yeah.
And because we've had guests on here a little bit more stated and been around it, and the use of that word to describe a color when it's justified, and this is justified.
Well, and think of it this way too, right? We're talking about a product, right? And there are so many rules around the production of Scotch whiskey, right? Including the barrels that can be used, right? So when you're talking about not adding any coloration, right, there are only going to be so many colors that come out within the range.
Yeah.
And so we can get creative sometimes to talk about ruddy and auburn and different shades of maple syrup or honey or gold, right? Or varnish or stain, right? But there's only so many words exist, right? Because of the product itself. Right. So I'll agree with you, Malcolm, in this mahogany. It's got a nice color, 12 years. I believe that the language on the bottle was exclusively matured. Exclusively matured in sherry oak casks. So that tells me the 12 years was in a sherry barrel. And that gives credibility to the idea of no color added, even though we have a nice deep color. Fair?
Yes.
Okay.
So I do have...
Oh, I see your legs. I see your action.
Yeah.
We've got spotting
got
and
a spotting,
running.
and then it all of a sudden disappears, and it just like starts to just streak.
Right, I've got the streaks. I don't see the spotting for me, but
No, you don't. But you go so much higher than I do.
right, I bring it all the way up, right? But I've got nice runs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive.
All right. Some sulfur, perhaps. Not as much as I anticipated.
But right off the bat.
Right, and then goes into this deep sweetness. Recognizably sherry.
Yeah, it's that sulfur is you can't mistake it. It's just there.
Yep. And it's such a funny word to use, right? Because it's not necessarily a word you would associate with something pleasant in just about any other arena.
It's almost like the opposite. You know, you think of sulfur, like, ooh.
Anti-pleasant. Unpleasant. But not in sherried whiskey. It's just a signal. It's an interesting way you're holding your glass right now.
I'm starting to I've done some homework, done some digging, and I've noticed on a couple of our episodes, because of the way I hold my glass, that the smell starts to change if I start to just bring up the temperature just a little bit.
Okay, interesting. Very good, right? Because what folks would say, a criticism of ice, which doesn't mean it's a bad thing to do, is that cooling it will numb it a little bit, right? Of course, as the water adds, you'll perhaps expose more flavors, but by artificially chilling, you may lose some of the flavor.
And there's something floral there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a sherry dominant.
Yes. But let's just say if I could scrape off that top layer of the sherry, there is something that runs underneath that I can't put my finger on. And again, maybe it's the lack of this be able to be descriptive of what I'm smelling.
How about a plum?
But I like that smell.
That not a green and not a red, but sort of a purple fruit.
But it's really pleasant. But you have to dig your way through that sulfur.
Yeah, you have to be able to sort of, I like this idea of scrape off like these top layers and be like, what else is going on in there?
Which goes back to that what you just said. It's odd that sulfur is actually used as, this is the smell that you pick up because of the sherry, because it's not a pleasant smell.
In any other arena. Yes.
And it's like, you fight that belief that, okay, sulfur is not that good, and you're trying to look for something underneath, and that underneath of this, if we're going to say it's plum, is really, really good.
Well, there's a thing that's talk is cheap, so why don't we pour some down our beak?
Cheers.
Cheers. Very mild entry, very spicy on the tongue end. I kept it in my mouth quite some time, and in between is that sherry experience for me. Mild, sherry, spicy. What do you got?
I'm going to agree with you. So I'm going to say pretty much the exact same thing. I didn't hold it in the back, so I don't have as much of that spice in the back, but I can definitely feel it.
Yep.
I can definitely feel it. But what I'm going to say, and I think I'm going to say it for every Macallan offering that we probably do, that is ridiculously smooth.
It's good. It is good.
There is no, when we first started out, and this is before the shows and stuff like that, you think of whiskey and you think of, you're going to fight it and it's going to give you a face.
Yeah, right.
But now that we've gone on this journey and we've obviously opened up a bottle off camera and whatnot, the smoothness of some of these drinks is ridiculous. And I will say it every time. Macallan have got this down to an art.
They do know what they're doing. I will offer this as a thought for consideration. This is not the most complex Macallan I've tried. right? What we have here really is that classic entire lifespan in a sherry barrel, right? From the Macallan still. Right.
They didn't tease this. They just freaking said, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Right, right. And they felt good about, the way the flavors were coming across, that these 12-year-olds, this is our batch for that. Of course, they would have other barrels that they're like, oh, we have a much more robust experience going on here. Perhaps this will move into our classic cut range, or this will move into, some of our other higher end ranges, the rare cask, right? So there's all these things Macallan does, but they also produce quite a bit of consistency.
Yes.
And this is a Macallan.
It is.
Right. This is not the most complex one, but for an age statement entirely matured in a sherry cask, this is nice. And I like how you're just like ridiculously smooth, right? And some folks will be like, oh, I don't want a ridiculously smooth whiskey. I'm ready to have like this, that, and the other thing. And I love this, that, and the other thing too, right? But sometimes you just want to have this.
And you have to tip your hat when you hit this moment, because it's just like, how do you put, what did we say with the ABV on this was?
43.
43.
Yeah.
43% ABV. Okay, we're at the low end, so we got that going for us. But to be able to make it so you could just take a sip and not make a face whatsoever and just enjoy what you're drinking.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And have the experience of like, oh, that's nice, right? I'm still stuck in this plum.
I like the plum.
Yeah.
I do like the plum because it's right there and it goes right through. And I like the fact that you said the first time around, if you held it in the back, if you hold this drink in the back, it's more of a adventure because you do get a little bit more of the heat.
It spices up.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, as I sit and think about the accoutrements available to us today, for me, it's a piece of this.
Yes, me too.
This sharp Cabot cheddar.
Thank you.
Right. And for me, the reason is I'm very familiar with this cheese, and I believe it to be creamy and just sharp enough, in many ways, like this whiskey. Just sharp enough.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good. That's a nice match. Fight me?
We're
in the park. I've got my table set up with the sign, Macallan 12-year-old and Cabot sharp cheddar. Good match.
Because of the creaminess of that cheese, you've just taken something that I would say is ridiculously smooth and made it even smoother. It is such an elegant drink, in the sense that this is what Macallan do. We're going to take all these ingredients, we're going to put it in there, and we're going to slap our name in it. We're going to charge an absorbent amount of money sometimes, whatever you want to do. Right?
You can pay a lot for a Macallan.
But what we're going to tell you, that it's going to be one of the smoothest products you're ever going to put down your throat.
And we picked this cheese. I recommended this cheddar because I felt it would complement what was happening. This pineapple, this ginger would fight it.
Agreed.
Right, would take away. This just added to the experience. In fact, in many ways, this particular cheddar cheese is the cheese version of this whiskey.
Okay. Yep, no.
Right?
That's a valid statement.
Sharp enough.
Sharp enough.
Yeah.
But extremely smooth.
Right, very creamy, very smooth, and just sharp enough.
That's a goodie.
The Macallan 12-year-old, 43% ABV, entirely matured, and sherry from Jerez. Incredibly smooth, ridiculously smooth, and just sharp enough. Well, let's see what the crew has for us.
This is yours. I'm not even touching this.
This is for you, though. Here's to the women who love us terribly. May they soon improve.
I love you, honey. Cheers.
Cheers. This Macallan, smooth, sharp, some sort of a purple fruit. We're thinking maybe a plum, but it is a quality drink. No matter what the critics say, You move past the price tag, which isn't too bad. Certainly you can find more affordable drinks, but this drink you will not be disappointed by whatsoever. And then once you match it with this sharp, creamy cheddar, you know that you found a pair.
What I like about this, and this is how I'm going to end this, that is the door that opens you to the rest of the Macallan world.